It's a privilege to be here for this topic, and especially after today's keynote from Ali and Jamie Dimon. I hope everybody's energized. It was such an awesome experience today to be there. So I'll quickly, I think, switch to the topic. Securing capital markets. I asked GPT to kind of imagine this for us with a picture, and this is what it came up with. There were a few of them, but I thought this one was more apt. And it kind of paints a picture. There's definitely a lot going on. We are at a crossroad, facing unprecedented volatility, sophisticated cyber attacks, cyber threats, and increasing and complex regulations across the globe. So that's kind of the picture. There's one more, and I like the arrows on this one, and it kind of shows how a single trade or a compliance lapse or a bad actor can cause a lot of damage in the space. So with that context, I think the most important to say here is trust and resilience is the core to how we manage and handle risk in this area. So with that, in the next 10 minutes, I will share some highlights on what State Street is doing on improving risk and booster resilience in this space. Okay, so a quick context on State Street. We specialize at State Street on delivering asset servicing across different asset classes, investment types. Typically, this includes global custody, fund accounting, fund administration, financial reporting type of services in transaction management, some front office software, front office data readiness. We service about 47 trillion in assets. We are over 100 plus markets, and our tech investment is greater than $2 billion. So in a nutshell, I think our job can be better described by ChatGPT again, and this is what it came up with this time. So it kind of describes, I think we are one of the, what is deemed as a systemically important financial institution. In other words, it's a critical infrastructure, like a nuclear reactor. And I think this picture to me sounds like Hogwarts, trying to defend against the Voldemort and the Death Eaters. I like the next one too, and the next one is more like Star Wars, you know, fighting against the Dark Force, the Empire. Okay, so getting into the core of the topic, why did we build a risk platform from scratch? I mean, I think it's obvious, we've all heard, but just to restate it, risk no longer lies in static data, right? It's embedded in the financial flows, which is nothing but data flows. And it's not confined to forecasts. So we have to deal with this in real time. So traditional methodologies of reporting were not sufficient. And we had to think of how we be proactive from day one and act in real time and be also cost effective at the same time. So the opportunity with all of this was clear in our mind. Data and AI is harnessing data and AI, leveraging data and AI is the only way to handle your risk. And that needs to happen proactively in real time. It has to be predictive, and it has to be preventive. So with that in mind, we embarked the journey to create an AI-powered risk management platform that works in real time, predicts, and prevents. And let me outline the core principles here, right? Number one was unification of data. Bring all relevant data together in one platform, one secure platform. Make it the single source of truth. Leverage patterns like data mesh imagine data as a product, try to get there. The second was intelligence everywhere. Use an analytics and machine learning at every step to gain real-time insights, and that's a huge leap. And then third is automation. Resolution is always in steps. API enable each step. So when you can connect them, things can happen in machine speed. Finally, or last but not the least, is really governance and security by design. And this has to be from the early stage, right? So we knew we had to modernize our technology foundation, break down the data silos, and infuse AI into all our workflows. But we had to do it in a governed setting, in a regulated environment, right? Now, how do we build risk excellence to this platform? So achieving risk excellence at scale requires more than just buying new tools. It demands a strategic blueprint. So we developed a comprehensive, repeatable pattern, the risk intelligence loop, which is the heart of the transformation. The components of these loops are detect and predict, and that becomes key because you have to measure risk, and you have to measure everything that can even indicate a risk. Then comes triage, prioritize, and filter the noise. And you can correlate, deduce at this stage. But essentially, you have to get rid of the noise. Then comes take action. Here's where I think it's important. The ones that need action, that has to happen. And it has to happen in machine speed. And then comes the next one, which is validate the actions. And there are many steps that can happen here, like audits, human in the loop, validation through history, right? And that becomes an important component. Last but not the least, in the background, it's important to validate how the actions were taken, like retrain the models, rewire the workflows, and that closes the loop. It's a continuous loop at that point, right? So this is creating a virtuous circle. Better data and AI leads to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better operations or resilient operations. And with all of this, it's important that we're not slowing down the business. We're actually enabling them to move fast. So you can see this creating a flywheel effect. So now a framework is only as good as the real-world impact, right? So the proof is in the pudding. We applied this to multiple areas where stakes were high. For example, to ensure the data domains, the data quality of critical data domains like pricing is good and sound. Reconciliations with the market look good. Portfolio health on the front office is good for the traders to trade with. The outcome was a win at multiple levels. We reduced our response time from hours or days to minutes for the critical processing. Several potential losses are continuously avoided, protecting our clients and ourselves, our firm. Equally important is none of these incidents become a headline or a regulatory problem because we catch them early. The proactive approach has since been replicated for other use cases, like proof and audit, balance sheet review. The business has greater confidence now that the risk is being managed in the background, allowing them to innovate safely. Now, our journey also highlighted the importance of partnership. We did not do this alone. We worked hand in hand with Databricks and others as a critical enabler. We tapped into the platforms, capabilities, and expertise, and to get all of this to get the most out of our data, right? And that's key. We collaborated with our industry peers. We talked with our clients early, ensuring we are exceeding their expectations. A few key design choices made this architecture successful. We chose cloud-based lakehouse platform in Databricks, which gave us scalability and openness to integrate all our data and leverage cutting-edge analytics. We implemented fine-grained security controls, encryption, and integrated our identity systems that ensured data was secure all along, all the way. We embraced on practices like data infrastructure as code, DevSecOps, data ops, ML ops. These decisions ensured that the platform was not only powerful, but can also be trusted by stakeholders. Now, the result is an architecture that lets us execute and execute right. We went from concept to production in a matter of months for the first use case. Shout out to the agile teams, our agile teams and Databricks experts. Over time, we scaled this to multiple other use cases using the same platform. With that, every project was actually able to accelerate with the repetition. And I want to call out Databricks and the Lakehouse architecture has been pivotal to this transformation. Now, looking ahead, we see even more opportunities here. The future is continuous intelligence. And we are ready for this. The threat landscape is going to keep evolving, and so will we. Right? Before I close, let me leave you with a few key takeaways here from our experience. One, data is your greatest asset when it comes to risk management. Invest in making it accessible and of high quality. Everything starts with a good data set. Second, AI and automation, when done right, are a game changer. They let you scale. They scale your risk insights, and they get you to act faster. Third, keep compliance and security front and center. It's absolutely possible to innovate and still meet your obligations. And finally, people make it happen. So empower your teams with skills and tools, and let them leverage data and AI. With those elements in place, you can turn your risk management from a defensive strategy to a defensive offense or a competitive advantage. Let's secure the future of capital markets together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Venki. We really appreciate you being here. You can hold on to that one there. Awesome. Thank you. If you're just coming in, please take a seat. We'd love to have you here. So we're moving on to the next section of, actually, you forgot this. There we go. Of our talk. We're going to moderate a panel. We're going to make it lively in here. But before we do, I really just, this whole topic is about capital markets, risk, how we're using data, how we're using AI. And, just looking at some figures, we've got over 70% of firms prioritizing AI and data. Volumes are soaring, and resilience is more critical than ever. We heard it from Jamie Dimon this morning. We heard it from Venki. We're going to hear some more of that on the panel today. So to help us out, and for those of you who are new, we're going to figure this out. I'm going to invite my friends from Long Beach and Dumbo, AKA Morgan Stanley and Moody's, up for a little panel discussion today. All right, get you guys set up. So to my immediate left, I have Eric Suss here from Morgan Stanley. And to the far left, we've got Luis Amador from Moody's. But before we get started, I always do this. I actually ask our guests, because you know yourselves, hopefully, better after self-reflection, more than we do. So please, Eric, if you could maybe just introduce who you are, what you do at Morgan Stanley, any fun life facts you care to share, but it's okay. And then the same with Louis right after.
Well, I can start with the fun fact. So I did not provide that picture.
Well, you know what? The internet did.
The internet did. And the fun fact is I'm an elected official in my hometown. I'm on the Board of Ed, and that's the election campaign picture.
I mean, come on, let's clap. That's a great picture, right? Yeah?
I have a lot more hair. It's a lot darker.
It's beautiful.
Anyway, I'm Eric Suss. I've been at Morgan Stanley for 29 years in multiple different roles, Currently, I'm responsible for product reference data and end-of-day pricing data for the entire firm. I'm in charge of institutional trading data for just the institutional side, and I'm also in charge of what's known as the middle office for cash being equities, bonds, treasuries. Prior to that, I spent 8 years in telecom at AT&T Bell Labs and Bellcore, and happy to be here.
Awesome. The Bell Graham, was that what it was called? Maybe predate my time. What was it?
Which?
The
Bell Labs?
AT&T Bell Labs, yeah. Got it.
Very cool place.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Lewis, please, let's hear
Thank
from you.
My picture is also 8 years old, so I wish that was my picture today. I'm Louis Amador. I'm the Chief Data Officer for Moody's. I've got a career in both the business side and the data and analytics side. So I spent much of my career structuring securitizations. From there, also spent time in the commercial real estate market. In each of those instances, building data foundations that empowered me and my teams to build products and be able to transact, whether it's on the business side or on the services side. Now I'm the Chief Data Officer for Moody's, and it's an exciting journey that we're starting, and we'll get into it today.
Awesome. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. So let's just jump in. We're going to talk a little bit first about just unified data, AI, some resilience. And a stat that I recently read in a survey stood out to me. It said that 68% of financial service firms have kind of prioritized or now ranked AI-driven risk and compliance as kind of like their top strategic priority. And I often ask, like, well, why? And it's because of the sheer volume. You're putting like all this information out there. It's multiplying, as we saw and we heard today, with what AI agents can do with databases and Neon, right? But because all this is happening, we've still got other things in the banks and at the capital markets, like kind of happening in silos, right? And so I want to kind of start with you, Lewis, today. Can you describe maybe like how Moody's is helping customers, you work with customers as well, unify all of this disparate data across all these different silos? And then how do you also think about governance at the same time, especially when risk data kind of becomes more complex and distributed across an organization?
Sure. So over a year and a half ago, we made the strategic decision. If you were to, we made it public, so you can Google it. We made the strategic decision to go all in, and we measured the risk of not using Gen AI and AI. We've always used AI, but Gen AI and the risk of using it. And we made the strategic decision to jump in and put all of our chips in. What that started was several, public partnerships that we made in the market, and also the ability to take our team of 14,000 and turn them into 14,000 innovators, basically. And that's the culture that we set. And from there, we began a journey of not only using Gen AI internally, but also using it on our commercial products and making sure that each one of our products has at least a navigator that you're interacting with, and also now agents. And we have a company that was built on using a tremendous amount of data that we collect, and that we have also partners that we receive data from. But also a flywheel effect of data producing insights, analytics, then putting those into workflow solutions, enterprise solutions that we provide to our customers. And we're at a space now where it's mostly we realize that our workflow solutions, for example, each module is going to be an agent, and in the future of a workflow solution is a combination of agents, right? So there's an evolution here, and we were happy to do it. The one thing that we knew at the very beginning, and we didn't want to get this wrong, was that we were also centralizing data from across the organization, and that's where we work with you obviously very closely. But we wanted to make sure that in things like entitlements and lineage and the focus on understanding the value of data and the purpose to different segments that you're supporting across your organization, that we knew that. If you look at, for example, the word underwriter, for one segment that I was in, they would call that an arranger or a structurer. In another segment that I was in, an underwriter was called a market maker or a deal maker. So all of these synonyms have to be captured into your data governance and lineage framework, or your agents are going to have a tougher time in being able to learn. So we'll talk a little bit more about it, but our focus has been on building this metadata moat and ensuring that we can provide that to the customers using anything in our flywheel, basically.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think you all saw in the demo this morning, like the archetype, like if we didn't have like the sugar like ride or the naming convention ride, there's a lot of error, right? But like Eric, let's hear from you. I'd love to understand kind of like if any of this resonates with you trying to unify data across an organization. I mean, you run a pretty hefty crew. So curious how Morgan Stanley is kind of working with this, with unification of data.
I mean, everything he said resonates. We're a complex organization. We have data across various platforms, on-prem and on the cloud, which it makes it particularly difficult because we're pushing a lot of our AI work. We want that done in the cloud. We don't want to build our own, GPUs in our own data centers. But most of my clients, just to be clear, are internal. So I'm dealing with business units, strats for any of you on Wall Street, internal organizations like the regulatory organization, reg compliance, operations. So that's really my client base. So as part of my job, I'm responsible at this point for a number of things that we call authorized sources or authorized redistributors, basically gold sources. And I try to make sure that everyone is pulling data from those gold sources to make sure that they're getting the right information. And I know you touched on a little bit, but I don't want to be duplicative, a big thing for us is entitlements. So if you think about the data, you think about, for example, what does someone doing analytics or doing AI want? They want trading data, they want risk data, and they want revenue data. Each one of those has a different kind of entitlement hierarchy. For example, revenue data is entitled by user client, trading data, traders client, risk data, the risk people information. So when you take that data and you munge it, enrich it, etc., what you have afterwards, how do you entitle it? So that's a big area of focus for us. There are a number of business areas at Morgan Stanley where there's firm boundaries against, for example, prime brokerage versus trading, investment banking, and we need to make sure that we maintain very strict entitlements.
Awesome, thank you for that. I mean, so we're working with like a lot of, the pre-work to even just get to a certain point is critical, and it actually kind of debilitates some firms, as we can see. They just kind of get frozen in, like, what do we do and how do we operate? So that leads me to a conversation that we've often been having with our customers regarding change management. It's how do you even get the right people involved? How do you find where this data is, especially if parts of your organization have their own kind of data crew, a data scientist that knows their business but maybe isn't absorbed into the rest of the organization. And so, as we know in capital markets, anytime you turn on the news, risk never sleeps. And in today's capital markets, resilience, though, is still key. So, the most successful firms that we've actually talked to, they tend to focus a lot more on employee engagement and really creating some clear communications, really kind of evolving the culture. In our forum yesterday, Maggie at Barclays came on stage and she talked about kind of the foundation of trust. I'd really love to kind of hear from you, Eric, about Morgan Stanley. How are you navigating this at scale? I think when we talked, you have thousands of people.
Thousands of users.
Yes, thousands of users. And, not everybody grew up understanding how to protect data, how to look at data, how to do the right thing with data. So how does Morgan Stanley kind of think about this, and how do you bring your teams along for this ride?
The first aspect of it is that everybody wants AI. Everybody wants AI yesterday, and unfortunately, myself, my team, are usually the bad people that say, slow down. And it gets back to kind of what Jamie Dimon said a little this afternoon, I'm sorry, this morning. I'm from New York, so it was this afternoon. Was, data is king. Everyone here familiar with GIGO? Garbage in, garbage out. Data is the foundation, and I have to make everybody understand that you really need to get the data right. And, that call at the sand and the gears, et cetera. But I have to work with everyone, with my business partners, with all those users, and make sure they understand the value of going with centralized solutions. So, for example, data doesn't get out of sync. Or we talked about entitlements. Then there's an aspect of cost. For those of you who are just discovering the cloud, you will find that the cloud is not free, no matter what the summer interns tell you about having them storing their pictures on the cloud for free. It isn't free, okay? In case we're clear about that one. But so I have to work with those clients, and then I think they get the idea of like, okay, of GIGO, but like what value add to centralized solutions? That slows me down. And I have to talk about, for example, vendor management. Moody's is a great vendor, by the way. But I have to manage, I pull data in from Bloomberg, from LSEG, from FATSEF, from Moody's, and dealing with the vendors, landing it, and it's not always correct, the data quality rules, et cetera. I have to correct it. There's, again, privacy controls, making sure that like there is sensitive data in there, that we have proper controls over it. We talked about entitlements. I mentioned cost. But basically I talk about all the stuff that's done behind the scenes so they understand that, okay, there's value add there, and that sometimes it's a little slower than necessary, but we want to go there. That said, for those of you not familiar with financial services, long before there were AI, there were financial models, and there's a lot of model control that goes on right now. And that's going to extend into AI models. So all of that work, all of those processes are being extended to make sure that we don't have the kind of problems that, let's just say, poorly managed models have had in the past.
That's awesome. Thank you. I don't know if you realize, so I used to actually work at JP Morgan, so seeing Jamie Dimon on stage was like, yay. But I do recall in marketing that one of the biggest projects after that big cybersecurity breach was trying to educate all of the different departments that had data everywhere about this cloud or about a unified system, and we were all brought into boardrooms to try to have some tech person tell us, like, oh, so what is a rack? What is the cloud? Where will your data be, and where will your data scientists be able to pull down some of that data? And you could see the eyes rolling. So there definitely is some education that's involved, especially for a lot of the front office users who will be kind of basically leveraging this. But so,
just to add,
yeah.
once, looks like obviously this is a data conference, everyone knows, you have a copy of a data, you've lost control of it.
Oh yeah,
it's gone.
Everywhere.
And then when, somebody, there's a data breach and your boss calls you and like, okay, what data was exposed? I'm like, well, all the data that I know about,
Yeah, it's true. The copy of the copy of the copy is somewhere in the intern's, laptop. So with that, Louis, would you maybe impart upon us, kind of like on the Moody's side, when you're thinking about kind of rolling out a lot of these new approaches with AI, how are you bringing a lot of your teams along for the ride?
Yeah, sure. So we run something that we call a horizons-based approach with our teams, where Horizon 1 for us is the no-brainer things that we should be doing, the core requirements that we're working on for our customers. Then we have a Horizon 2 part of our investments, and this happens concurrently at all times, where these are the ideas that are coming from us, and that we're investing in without the request of our customer, but the validation. We're validating that investment with our customers. And our Horizon 3 is the complete pie in the sky. So there's, across the board, there may be 10% in Horizon 3, 30% in Horizon 2, and 60 to 65% in Horizon 1. Our idea behind that, and it's not something that we invented, is from a book that called Alchemy of Growth that we, many years ago when that picture was taken.
It's actually on the cover of the book. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We adapted a similar approach to what that taught us, and that a portion of Horizon 3 will eventually become Horizon 2, a bigger portion of Horizon 2 will become Horizon 1, and we're constantly trying to cannibalize our own framework, before somebody else does. So if you were to walk in and speak to many of the employees at Moody's and their team, they're speaking in H1. This is an H1 idea, this is an H2 idea, this is an H3 idea, and ideas can come from anywhere, and we encourage that, but with strong data governance and entitlements and controls so that we understand how to protect the data. So it's a culture of innovation, but with the controls around it that we need to make sure that we don't have a breach. But for us, it depends on, for us in financial services, it's important that people know the workflows, right? How is the data used? And I have this term, people come to me and they say that I say this, that if you don't know the workflows, you're dead to me. And it
Wait. Okay,
and it's something that I would not say broadly, but you have to know the workflows. You have to know how the data is used. You have to know the value and the purpose. So there's a large number of business analyst types in our organization, versus someone's a developer and someone's a business side person, right? So that's what we try to do, and as we deploy in that framework in a very controlled fashion, and we think that for us, innovating is just a little bit easier because that investment's happening concurrently at all times.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. And I like how it's just been adopted. People just talk, like when it's really absorbed when people just absorb it into the lingo. You probably have like emails with just like if it's H1.
Exactly. Yeah.
H1 meeting, right?
Those are that's the lexicon that we have internally.
I love it. And I'm going to keep with you on that because we'll move to the third topic of this panel. And it's really, just this model governance, data, model governance, transparency, and trust. And you really kind of hit on some of that, like the guardrails and kind of the frameworks that you've provided. But like you also work with customers, like you use Moody's, right? Like how is that becoming either the halo effect than how you manage internally to then reach your customers, right? Like that impact in helping them understand the transparency,
absolutely.
Trust.
Yeah, I mean, like whenever we deliver data, whether it's in the form of raw data or even on our information portals, but that the raw data that we give customers is our golden set. So we have our golden set. It becomes the bronze set for our customers, and they merge other data sets, and that becomes their golden copy of a data set. We are in many conversations with our customers about how we handle our data governance and sharing ideas. We don't have all the answers, so we, for us, it's a pleasure to talk to our customers and be able to share, those ideas. And again, back to this metadata moat, the labeling, the annotating, the ability to quickly see lineage, to automate the changes in metadata, all of that is what we talk about with our customers. And then we both have an understanding that the ultimate consumer is maybe human or non-human. So we have to build in a way that that's just ready for that world that we're in. We're pretty much in now.
I mean, we're going to have agents talking to agents soon. We're just
Exactly.
going to be like on vacation somewhere, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
So with that, Eric, how do you see this balance between innovation and oversight evolving at Morgan Stanley?
Your regulation's a fact of life, just like Jamie Dimon said, Morgan Stanley. We're in every jurisdiction you can think of in the world. We have plenty of tough regulations that we need to apply to our data, like for those of you familiar with BCBS 239. But it's a bad one. But I'm more of a glass half full than a half empty kind of person.
Okay.
So waiting for my fellow Morgan Stanley people to react. But having new regulatory requirements, new governance, is actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity to rethink how we handle data. It's an opportunity to fix and repair things. And innovation, to me, is not just necessarily applying a new technology, but how we process the data. So, for example, we brought in new data vendors to replace other data vendors, which the business has improved analytics. I liked your term with metadata. What did you call it?
Metadata moat.
Metadata moat. I've been known to talk in the old days before, when there was the original, data lake. I used to call it data cesspool, because they didn't necessarily have the proper metadata around it. And one of the things that the governance has led us to do is improve our metadata. The first question, like a data scientist comes into the firm and asks, is like, what data do I have available? What does it look like? What is the timeliness? We can now way better answer that question. We've had Morgan Stanley, again, the whole firm. We've brought E-Trade, Parametric, Solium. Then there's still all the various businesses, but there's a lot of people that want to leverage all of this third-party vendor data that we bring in, and again, the metadata has certainly helped. It's accelerated our work to consolidate our data, which we've all been talking about, some of the advantages there. So it's not necessarily, I know you talked about it as like a balance between innovation and governance, but it's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to improve things. And sometimes, maybe because I'm a tech person, it's difficult to convince some of our business users, like, this is a good thing. And now we can hey, we're being forced to do this. And so some things get done.
This is awesome. I think we're almost out of time, so I just want to do a quick lightning question for you all. I'm a fan of Ray Dalio, and I love his thing, speaking of glass, the crystal ball. Those who live by the crystal ball eat shattered glass. But with that said, what would be your future prediction that you would leave everybody here with if you were to look into your crystal ball?
I think there will be less IT. That's all what we've been talking about. There'll be just less IT involvement in a lot of aspects of what the business does. In particular, onboarding data onto platforms. Again, you've heard all about it this whole week. There's more and more data out there. There's more and more analysis that people want to do. There's more and more governance out there. And all of this tooling and Databricks and everything that we've heard about, there's just going to be less IT involvement in that and more of IT doing what I'll call higher value work.
Get ready, IT. What about you, Louis?
I agree, and I used to have a framework that I would share internally with my teams on, if you're the CTO or if you're an engineer, your client exposure may be, a lot more limited than someone in business development or in sales or a product manager or a project manager, and it made sense a long time ago. Now, I've realized that has to go out the window, and for the folks in the room, it comes back to really making sure that you understand what your clients are doing when they're underwriting a loan, or they're in an M&A transaction, or they're investing as an asset manager, or you're underwriting an insurance policy. Being in the room, right, seeing it happen is extremely important. So I think that for me, I agree that the technology is disrupting, but the skill sets that especially all of us need to continue evolving is just understanding what happens during that transaction, that real time, right, and then creating that that information moat for yourself, right, so that you're just better able to use the technology.
That's great. So I just want to thank you guys for today. And honestly, the key takeaways are really like staggering. Like AI and unified data are really redefining risk management. You know, we've got culture and collaboration as like a priority as we try to bring everybody along on this journey with us. And then strong governance, it isn't just compliance. Like it shouldn't just be on the back of anyone. As we start to federate and democratize data and AI, we really do need to kind of make sure that everybody gets the, what is it, GEICO? And the horizons format and framework to work with. So I just want to thank you guys for joining me on this stage today. It's been an ultimate pleasure. And then for everyone here, I just want to make sure that you know that this forum was sponsored by Deloitte and AWS, our friends and partners. And if you could also just leave us a note in the survey. We really do strive to try to improve these sessions for you all with the speakers, the content. So if you could go into your app and just leave us a couple of notes. And then last but not least, wanted to share some of the upcoming sessions that are still on tap. Depending upon if you just cut across all the subverticals in financial services, we've got something for everybody. But definitely check out my friend Antoine. He is going to be speaking later today on I believe it's the banking session, but it's, oh, actually, I'm sorry, the insurance session. It's a all-nighter. It's like at 5:20 p.m. I know. Bring a drink, but we would love if you'd come out and support. And then we've got some cool assets for you all. If this is your first time at Data and AI Summit and you're also just coming along the journey, like what does data intelligence do in financial services? Check out this ebook. I drafted it, but we've got some cool stuff in here, some use cases, as well as a economist piece with some really cool, crunchy data and details about Gen AI. But thank you all for your time. It's been so great. Please enjoy the rest of Data and AI Summit.